Should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Today we speak about Sanjay Srivastava's paper. Just a minute. Risha?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah. So, today we speak about Sanjay Srivastava's paper, which is titled Urban Spaces, Disney, Divinity, and Moral Middle Classes in Delhi. In this paper, he has focused on two sides of the making of certain contemporary urban middle class cultures and identities. Can you please put the next slide? Yeah. So, these two sites in discussion are the Akshardham Temple complex situated in Delhi on the banks of Yamuna. We might refer it as AT in the future discussion. And the second is Delhi government's Bhagidari scheme for citizen-state partnership. So, urban life as we know it is always buzzing with activities and thriving with vigor. Urban spaces are those which reflect these characteristics. They may be well developed or even empty plots, but a place which allows urban events gets the identity of an urban space. In this paper, the author has explored some meanings of what we mean by middle class and how fresh development decisions regarding such urban spaces like Akshardham play a crucial role in shaping up the identity of this so-called middle class. You can go ahead with the presentation, Risha.
What is Akshardham? The Akshardham temple complex spreads over an area of 100 acres and was completed in November 2005 by Pochasanvasi Sri Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha or the BAPS, one of the major subsects within the Swaminarayan movement. The temple complex is a Hindu house of worship and a spiritual and a cultural campus dedicated to learning and harmony. The Mayur Gate, decorated with 869 peacocks, forms the entrance to the main complex. The Akshardham Mandir consists of 234 intricately carved pillars, 9 ornate domes, 20 quadrangle spires, and 20,000 statues of India's Hinduism spiritual personalities. Each carved pillar, ceiling, or dome shares a story of devotion or captures an incident from the life of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. The Gajendra Peeth, or the elephant lind on which the mandir stands, presents the story and the legends of elephants with nature, with human, and with God. The mandapam or the domes, as mentioned earlier, the temple has 9 ornate domes resting beautifully on carved pillars. Each mandapam or the dome features unique forms of Bhagwan Swaminarayan's life story. Beyond the Mayur Gate, and there is a 5-star lobby or the reception, after which the complex is divided into different sections or halls. The different kinds of religious exhibitions are displayed here in 3 large halls, each with unique display style. The Hall of Values or the Sajanand Darshan. The Hall of Values consists of a series of halls, contains 3D walkthrough, dioramas and presentations from the life of Bhagwan Swaminarayan or Nilkant, or what we are told as 18th century India. The giant screen film IMAX or the Nilkant Darshan. The IMAX show is on a 85 by 65 inches screen, charts the life of Bhagwan Swaminarayan from childhood to adulthood, focusing on certain key events or transformations from Nilkant to Bhagwan Swaminarayan. There are spectacular shots of the Himalayas, rivers, and the coastal locations, and extensive use of aerial photography too. The cultural board or the Sanskruti Darshan. Here you experience the lifestyle of the Vedic era. This is a 12-minute boat ride which presents some of the India's important contribution to the world. During the planning of Akshardham, inspirations were taken from the Disneyland and the Universal Studios. Hence, the idea was based on what they saw there, and the ability to make quick decisions were aided by the use of technology to achieve the desired objective. The Sarzanan Multimedia Water Show depicted some of the life stories from the life of Neelkant. The breeze between the inside and the outside was done by bringing in natural elements such as the garden with the boat ride in the technological controlled space. Raj?
Who is next?
Raj.
Acha, okay.
Hi,
The new
sorry.
urban. Acha.
Basically, the new urban spaces, they sort of brought together different aspects of life. So then they brought in people as well as the economic activities that any country needs for the development of a place. So Akshardham as such was one such place wherein rather than creating a completely new world inside, it was kind of a amalgamation of what was outside as well as inside. So it basically stood at a point where there wasn't much differentiation between what the outside world is and what inside is. And Akshardham, as to say, it's just one of the many projects that were started for the development of such new urban spaces.
Next slide. So the author also discusses the design of other urban spaces except AP, such as malls, where designers were expected to create a clear distinction between the inside. Risha, previous slide. Thanks. So, where designers were expected to create a clear distinction between the inside and outside to provide a unique experience. However, as we discussed earlier, the Akshardham temple blurs these notions because there's an overload in the amount of information that it offers. The goods and services within it are almost as if they are wrenched from a different time period because their contexts are erased in the process of consuming them. So the complex is both the site as well as the product of globalization in a sense. So the discussion of designs of both these spaces that the author provides helps us draw parallels between them and helps us see how spaces like Akshardham complex are unexpectedly similar to malls, where they are promoting the same core idea of surplus consumption. Next slide.
So, a space is not just walls we create, it is defined by the kind of people that inhabit it. So, for writing this paper, it's very evident that the author went to certain extents and he did the survey of how people behave when they are at the Akshardham temple complex, and he also noticed the kind of people that usually go and visit the Akshardham temple complex. So he said that even though we say that it's usually the middle class that go into this Akshardham temple, but he also mentioned, which we have quoted here, that unlike visitors to theme parks such as Disneyland, the visitors do not appear to be those from the upper middle classes, bosses rather than workers. So here we again see the kind of vastness the term middle class itself holds. It's not just one class, it has many subgroups, which is basically the point of discussion, an important point of discussion in this paper. So here we have noted down a few stereotypes, as in who visit AT. They are usually visiting in large numbers and not nuclear families, and usually they bring up so like women visit with their large group of friends, or school kids go for excursions, or distant relatives and joint families go to AT together. Next slide. So this is something we tried to do. So we have tried to compare the behaviors we face in an amusement park like Disneyland or the Universal Studios, and this uh, Hindu version of the Disneyland, as we can call it, AT. So, what do people do in an amusement park? They go, they enjoy rides, they grab bites, and they have a fun time with their families. And usually, what do people do in a sacred place? They go there for contemplation, soul searching. But this is something which we do not notice in the AT complex, because even though it is supposed to be a sacred place which uh, imparts the teachings from the life of Swami Narayan, it at some point it becomes a theme park with uh, the high technological shows and everything, like the rides and the boat ride and everything, which is very much Disneyfied, as we can call it. So Akshardham temple is like a mixture of a sacred place and a theme park. And that's why we don't see people behaving like they usually would in a sacred place. Like, instead of sitting down and listening to what the slides have to say about Bhagwan Swami Narayan and his teachings, they are more interested to go ahead and enjoy the next attraction, which might be the garden of statues or the boat ride. Next slide. Risha, hello.
I changed the slide.
It's not visible.
It's not visible. Yeah.
Now is it?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the author talks about how moral consumption is related to both men and women, but then he emphasizes mainly on how women they're coming out to be the new consumers. So women being seen in surplus numbers is explained as an effect of several shopping centers being there. Here he basically ends up relying on the stereotype that women love to shop, rather than trying to find out other reasons that might explain their behavior. So maybe because of children being there, being at home the entire day. So more research related to women visiting Akshardham in higher numbers and appropriate reasoning might have helped add more nuance to the paper. So exploring the societal expectations and the duties of a woman. So the reasons for it is attraction to joint families, children, or elderly, they are specified. But then when it comes to women, vague explanations such as love of shopping centers interferes with adding more depth. Risha, next slide.
So one aspect of we can consider the Akshardham complex as a beautification drive, and usually beautification drive plays an important role in the economy of a place. And the Akshardham complex comes under the Yamuna Bed Beautification Project, which was intended to develop as a national hub with memorials and historical monuments. In order to do this, they had to eradicate so-called unclean spaces, JJ slums and Nangla Masjid, so they could build uh, a beautification drive that is Akshardham complex. Next slide.
Risha,
Yeah, I changed the slide.
it's not visible. Yeah, yeah. So Bhagidari system, or the Jan Bhagidari, or the people partnership, was an initiative of the government of the state of Delhi in India, to promote the broad-based civic participation in local governance. The government stated goal is to create the greater transparency and the accountability in administration in order to improve the quality, effectiveness, and deliver of public services. So it was the pet initiative of Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit. Bhagidari aims to bridge the trust gap between the government and its citizens. Bhagidari, which literally means collaborative partnership. Right now, it is in its 20th year with a special Bhagidari cell set up in the office of the Chief Minister. So Bhagidari, it was a mean of facilitating the city-wide changes in Delhi, and also aims to develop the joint ownership by the citizens and the government, the change process. It also facilitates people participation in the government. So like few years back, there was this thing, like Delhi was experiencing high net migration and natural increase, like the positive increase in population. So the population density was swelled substantially in the last 2 decades, which has led to the demand for water exceeding by around 120 to 170 million gallons per day since the year 2000. So Bhagidari program was an attempt to resolve such problems faced by the city residents with the participation of the people in the local governance. So as a concept, Bhagidari, it involved the various NGOs like Residents Welfare Association, the Market Trader Association, and the other NGOs, along with the like government government staffs like the New Delhi municipal councils and various government authorities were involved in this. So its main goal was to the main concept of the Bhagidari scheme was to give the better service delivery to the citizens, a clean and then a clean and green Delhi, a hassle-free Delhi, and the partnership participation of the citizen in governance. The people of the Delhi should treat Delhi as their own. My Delhi, I care. Next slide.
So the people at Bhagidari and their prejudices. As we know that the JJ colony people are evacuated from their places, and then because of that the people at Bhagidari were afraid that the JJ colony people are threat to them. So they have discussed these 6 points with the MD and police, that the police and RWA cooperation should be there. RWA informing people about the houses where both husband and wife went out to work. Like that is where the houses are vacant during the day, and the inspection of the all unoccupied houses should be done by the police, drawing up list of maids, hawkers, plumbers, etc. in order to allow authorized people into the locality. Only the certain people's, only the people at Bhagidari were allowed, and the others are everybody is checked who are getting into the Bhagidari. Security threats from JJ and surprise check of the private security people. So these peoples are continuously checked by the police, and yeah, and it was also suggested that the MDA and RWA should inform about the families, those who don't pay attention to the RWA. So these people should be challenged or penalized by the police. Yeah, next slide. Risha.
So talking about surplus consumption, so in the paper in the first half, the author talks about Akshardham temple in Bhagidari and the situation over there, and then in the next half of the paper, the author tries to look at them in a lens of theory. So surplus consumption in a Marxist ideology means the means the idea to consume more and more, even when the basic needs are fulfilled. So he defines surplus consumption as a strategy of engaging with the intensity of social and cultural changes introduced by various global forces. He goes on to point examples in Akshardham and Bhagidari and in the Bhagidari program. For example, consumption in the Akshardham experience, there's a five-star mall-like entrance lobby and the food hall, along with the temple-related goods such as clothing, Ayurvedic medicine, and even electronics. The audience seek to experience the ancient to the contemporary market behavior. Whereas in the Bhagidari Utsav, there's a carnival of caring, and there's merchandise called Team Delhi sold at the Bhagidari Utsav. Even though there are a lot of prejudices associated with it, like how it was just explained in the previous slide. Risha, next slide. So these new public spaces offer a way of tying consumption to religion or duty. The IMAX, Disneyfied boat rides, baseball caps, etc., are under the guise of spiritual goods, and and even a lot of Indian magazines such as Grisha Shobha and Griha Lakshmi, where sexually explicit articles are placed side by side with religious texts and information related to customs. So in the paper, if you see, he talks a lot about this.
So there comes this idea of retractable modernity, which allows the Indian middle class to define its own version of modernity. In this definition, we always have our Indianness to fall back on. We can indulge and pull back from modernity at our own convenience. From this, we even derive a sense of morality because we are able to show restraint even after indulgence. It acts as a solution to the middle class's anxiety about consumption. Next.
The author then looks at the middle classes of India. So usually the middle class consists of people who are below the bourgeois but above the proletariat. In a normal Western society, this is the only division. However, in India, there is also the division of castes. Risha? Next slide. So because of caste, the interplay of class and caste forms a new sort of a middle class in India. The author says that we might then speak of a new middle class that brings together the various strands of new consumer culture, relations with the state. One slide back. Relations with the state and with religiosity, the discourses of clean and unclean urban spaces, and anxieties about relationship between consumption and true Indianness. What this essentially means is the interaction of capitalism and the Hindu caste order creates a new hegemony in the middle class. The author calls this as the moral middle class. The moral middle class comprises of normative societal roles as defined by the caste order. For example, as we saw in the Bhagidari system, there was a rule saying that there was a condition saying that people having families where all the family members go out for work need to have their houses checked. So this is something which is sort of talked about in the caste system, where the man needs to go out to work and the woman needs to it talked about in the Hindu mythology, where the man needs to go out to work and the woman needs to stay in and take care of the house. So even though their economic state might be same, there is still a discrepancy between them looking at the caste. So the author talks about the formation of a new moral middle class, which is higher than the middle class. Next slide.
Who's going next?
These are the two examples that are taken from the 80 complex and the labor at Bhagidari. So in the labor at Bhagidari, there is a 2-day program where all the problems of citizens are discussed. The participants draw the flow charts and share them with the local police officers. The participant state functionaries also responds to these queries. One of the major queries were discussed about JJ clusters. So the people from JJ clusters works at Bhagidari as laborers. JJ clusters was demolished to convert it into a tourist spot, causing lots of people to lose their home, place, and jobs. So the MCD deputy commissioners were asked to inform people at Bhagidari about the activities regarding regular surveillance of bad characters and history sheeters from the JJ clusters. Uh, so, as the people from Bhagidari were afraid that maybe the people belonging to JJ cluster might cause problem at the function as they were serving as laborers, so they were people from JJ cluster were asked to monitored on daily basis. And so legality at 80 complex that this is another way of understanding making of new urban spaces to create contemporary urban developments. Certain practices related to residence houses are conducted. It is a massive and wide complex, and it is a social transformation kind of space in Delhi and other Indian countries to make clean spaces like Akshardham, spaces like JJ clusters, which are slum areas, are cleared. So this was very ungrateful move taken by MT and RWS. Almost 53 colonies were demolished for this, and this forced invasion caused 79,000 families to settle in outlying areas of Delhi, most of which are still unsettled. So Nagla Machi was also one of these colonies, which was demolished for the construction of Akshardham. Nagla Machi was situated on the banks of river Yamuna, and this land was environmentally important. So Nagla Machi faced forced evictions because it was built on this important land, and people said that government said that this settlement is illegal. Akshardham was also built on the same land across the river Yamuna and were given more area. Uh, Nagla Machi was removed, saying that it is just people that have settled on this land without any legal rights. But Akshardham was permitted to build on this area, and court declared them as legal construction because they were having more power and more political power and more money. Next slide.
Yeah, so basically, the making of Akshardham claims that it's a clean space and hence overpowers the other unclean spaces which were therefore removed, like the JJ's colonies. So, what and who actually defines what these ideas of clean and unclean spaces are? This is one of the points that we wanted to highlight in our paper.
So the Bhagidari Utsav provided a space that both symbolically and literally, where the city was experienced as undergoing a transformation through integration to the global culture and commercial economy. So symbolically, of course, it is the site of the display of various models and dioramas which showed of the so-called progress that the citizens, or rather the members of the RVAs, brought about in collaboration with their local authorities. So the slide shows Pragati Maidan and Akshardham temple located on either side of the river, and highlighted in the rectangle is the location of the Nagla Machi slums. So what the choosing Pragati Maidan as the as the location for the Bhagidari Utsav does is it literally bears witness to the development and flourishing of Akshardham, which is itself a testament to the globalization and consumerist tendencies of the modern middle class. But simultaneously, it also looks over at the site of the demolition of encroached spaces, which were cleared to make way for further riverfront beautification projects, which again cater to the same consumerist tendencies. And again, to really bring home the point, as we discussed earlier, this dichotomy where the labor at Bhagidari Utsav itself is provided by the erstwhile residents of Nagla Machi. So the site itself symbolically as well as literally shows of the transformation that the spaces are going through. Thank you.
since you're done with the presentation, we'd ask the class if they have any questions.
Okay. Can the group which presented the last time raise some questions or just continue the discussion with what all you spoke about? Do you have memories or everyone is like slip? Where is the last group? People from the last group? Anyone?
Athira is here, no?
No one from the last group of 10 people is here? Wow. No one has any question. Nobody has anything to continue with the discussion. The last group is not present here. Then what is this class for? I don't get it.
There is. Can you summarize moral middle class? Okay.
So the moral middle class was basically about how in the middle class where they have this anxiety about surplus consumption, but when it gets tied in with these ideas of religion, say at Akshardham temple, or nationalism or duty through Bhagidari, the consumption somehow becomes okay, and it becomes this idea of it because it's getting mixed with these moral ideas. The consumption itself becomes moral, and the moral middle class thus also gets a sense of morality because they are able to indulge in the westernized notions such as consumption or capitalism, and come back to traditional or so-called Indian notions such as religion, customs, etc. So that's how the moral middle class.
And what does the moral middle class then do to different sides? What kind of rupture does it lead to? Like, so broadly, what all can you identify? Like, you know, that moral middle class creates these fragmentation and creates this rupture. So how does it fragment or is the moral middle class one homogeneous group? Who are the other people in the group? Risha, you want to talk about it? She's not there in the class?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you repeat the question?
So I wanted to ask, like, uh, someone spoke about the moral middle class. So now there is this whole category of moral middle class who have a sense of authority, superiority. They draw their power from various state institutions also. But this whole moral middle class position itself, and it fragments the society, as in that moral middle class is not one homogeneous group. So what kind of fragmentation could you see in the paper itself, that what were the different sides it was trying to engage with, you know?
So in the paper, as a whole, moral middle class is defined as something was defined as the people who consume a lot. So in Akshardham also, the people who visit there and the people who work there are referred to as the moral middle class, and the people who live in those colonies, the JJ colonies or the Nagla Mansi, they are referred to as the normal people, and they are not considered inside this moral middle class.
Yeah, but what all kind of site is it creating? Like, what all is doing moral middle class? So, you know, in a sense, it talks about Yamuna, okay, which is an environmental aspect. So it talks about how the moral middle class itself went ahead and it encroached a river bed.
Yeah.
Okay, in the same way, when they talk about feminization and women as consumer, they're also flattening, they're trying that the middle class and the market would take care of and flatten the discourses of feminist theories. Okay, so this paper is also ideal in the sense that it simultaneously first engages with this, because remember the original intent of having this presentation was to broaden the horizon or the tropes through which you can engage with the question of class. Okay, now class, now and here we see that the consumerist market is trying to flatten a lot of identities by creating these different categories. Okay, so your bhagidari system, you have very formal religious groups which is existing in all religious groups now, but you will see a lot of religious functions which were very regional, which was very localized, now has a pan India imagination.
Yeah.
Okay, so that pan India imagination basically is an effort that, abhi Karwa Chauth everyone does, even somebody who is in Pune and even somebody who is in Punjab, they do it with equal consumerist kind of an approach, and we think we all are equal. But the moment maybe if they come from Punjab or they go from here, they'll try and figure out they are vegetarians, non-vegetarians, they are from which caste, they're from which gotra, everything, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Sarah, you want to say something? It's like sitting
There's
in
a
the black.
question. There's a
Hmm.
question for
Okay.
this group. Uh, the notion of Akshardham as a clean space that was mentioned earlier, where it overpowers the spaces that were unclean and were removed. Can you explain that again? Okay, I have something to ask you. I mean, as a group, what are your observations, your personal observations and comments? You have told us what the paper says, but tell us what is your opinion, not just about the paper, but about even some of the readings that Ishan has mentioned here. Like he has mentioned some articles from Scroll written by Sanjay Srivastav. So I would suggest that if you could just tell us in a nutshell, what are your own observations and feedback?
Or even just to add to this, that we all are that moral middle class. So how do you see
Correct.
yourself talking about or thinking about it?
Right.
It's like a dark well teaching this class.
Okay,
कौन
anybody
किससे
can
बात
answer,
कर रहा है,
huh?
किससे पूछ रहा है, किसी
Yeah,
को कुछ नहीं पता.
yes. Please answer. Anybody from the group can answer. Shrestha can answer, Isha and Vidisha, anybody.
Anyone in the
So
sure.
Obviously this when we were looking at this, one thing that we kind of decided to expand on the paper that we are writing was because there's not much nuance of like how caste and classes are affected is mentioned in the paper, like in the essay that he's written. So that was something we've been thinking of taking ahead in our paper. Because there's also this great interrelation of how we kind of associate being middle class with modernity, but modernity is not just like the owning of things or vehicles, or it can't exactly be classified on the basis of those terms. It's more about social relations. And so, where middle class here, he brings up moral middle class and looks at one type of middle class, but middle class itself is not a singular unit. It's a plural term because it makes up like 40% of our population. So it's varied, and people who are part of the middle class have diverse backgrounds. So maybe that could have been explored further.
Hmm.
Okay. Ishan, what do you think?
So I think one more thing that there was to be mentioned, like for example, there is also an ideology that middle class is not actually does not exist. There's only two classes of the oppressor and the oppressed. So as Shesha said, the middle class only consists of like 40% of the society, whereas the elite 40 to 50%, and the elite class consists of 10%. And there's a ideology that the combination of the middle class and the upper class actually oppresses the lower class. So maybe he could have explored this, and the notion that the moral middle class is actually just the middle class, and anyone who is exempt of the moral middle class might be a part of the lower class, because in India the class is always mixed with caste. Class will always be mixed with caste. So the moral middle class, basically the distinction between the normal middle class and the moral middle class is so high that it would have been better to explore it as oppressed class and oppressor class, which is actually what he also tries to see in these articles and a few more that we have found in the paper.
Right. Okay. Good.
Just a bit more to this discussion, which Ishan rightly points out, is and this is happening across all religious groups. Okay, that you have different, like if you see, there were very few ISKCON temples across the country at some point of time, right? Today we have ISKCON temple dotted across. Today we have a lot of these small mosques or other religious groups which is coming, because and you will see and so basically in this paper is also trying to map that who are the people who are generating the and creating the idea of the middle class, but who are they feeding into? Okay, or what groups through the like the market is trying to take care of your different identities by like fair and lovely में क्या fair and lovely cream लगाइए और आप empowered हो जाएंगे और आपका बिजनेस शुरू हो जाएगा और आप सक्सेसफुल विमेन हो जाएंगे, जैसे कि आपकी सारी जो फीमेल वाली जो आइडेंटिटी है that all will be taking care of it. Okay, so that's a very good example. Like somebody asked, can you summarize moral middle class? So moral middle class also draws itself from a lot of this consumerist approach. Okay, they themselves are consumerist and they themselves are extremely biased for sure, and like many of you have highlighted in this paper that it doesn't talk about caste, but that's something which will subsequent. So this has just started the conversation. The conversation keeps uh, adding more and more as and when we move with a question. So in this one we wanted to highlight that the category of class itself is now hijacked by the capitalist framework, and the category of class itself, we think that free market will take care of everything, but that's not true. It is creating a lot of ruptures. As like the best example is, what did the middle class do during the pandemic? Absolutely nothing, except kept saying that ये लोग यहाँ से क्यों जा रहे हैं, इनको पता नहीं है कि इतनी दूर चल के नहीं जा सकते, ये लोग अपने घर में नहीं रह सकते।
ताली बजाओगे as well.
हाँ, so like अभी भी लोग कहते हैं अरे ये लोग घर पे क्यों नहीं रहते हैं, इनको बाहर सड़क पे क्यों आने की जरूरत है, घर पे रहिए, but probably their house is much smaller than even their bathroom. Any other discussion, Sarah?
Yeah, I think there was something very interesting pointed out by Ishan. This is not Ishan Desai, but
the notion of
yeah. He talks about spiritual consumerism, and like as Shrimabri rightly pointed out, it is prevalent in all in all religious sections of our society. Okay, you will find it whether it is Islam or Christianity. Okay, you will find this whole aspect of spiritual consumerism, wherein you will find again a large segment of the population belonging to the what we would call as the middle classes. Okay, whether it is the upper or the lower, it does tend to attract this segment of the population. Now, in this particular paper, it is important to see how the author tries to relate religion with the whole class segment. Okay. It is not to say that the poor don't or do not advocate or do not profess or do not even follow any particular religion. Okay, it is not to say that, but it is
or they don't have morality.
Exactly, or they don't have morality. Okay, similarly to even the rich. Okay, the very wealthy classes of people. But it is to highlight that this kind of consumerism that is happening, okay, is largely attracting this segment of population, okay, who's otherwise kind of very oblivious to what is happening around them, okay, and therefore, like, you will see this on the rise. You will, you may have heard of course, the Isha Foundation, the Shri Ravi Shankar, and all of these kind of, groups that are kind of coming up in a big way, okay, and and again, if you look at the kind of population it attracts, it is largely the middle classes, okay. So there is some kind of something that is being promised out here, okay, and not in terms of not in terms of monetary benefits, but in terms of spiritual benefits that is attracting the segment of the population. Yeah.
Actually, Shri Ravi Shankar example is a far better example than this one also.
Yes.
That the
Yes,
whole
absolutely.
middle class is there, and it talks about the art of living and spiritual
Correct.
living and holistic living and healthy living, as if anyway. So in continuation to what Sarah, I'll give you a very small example that what middle class and how we think that will make one. So as a kid, I used to live in Darjeeling, okay, and we had a house help, and she was from a tribal group, but they were Muslims, but they were just Muslims, like नाम था और शायद सेंसस में उनका उससे है, but they didn't practice anything. She was from a tribal group, but my mom would always try and monitor her behavior, like how she should wear, where should she go, she should pray, she should act like a practicing Muslim, and she would always draw these blank faces like why am I being asked to do like that, because her identity as a from a tribal group was far greater than her identity as a Muslim. But now all religious groups are trying to have this pan India imagination कि एक बड़ा हिंदू महासभा है, एक बड़ा मुस्लिम उम्मा है पूरी दुनिया की, but there is no Muslim ummah. Syria is crying, Afghanistan nobody cares, but the discourses, if you see any Hollywood movie, you'll always see the savior, US trying to save militant Islamics, people from militant Islamic. So all of this is also creation of the market or the commodified or the way capitalism is moving. It's a requirement to create these splinterings. It is a requirement to create this fragmentation, and yeah, and that's why we are doing all of this under conflict theory. Any other question? Even if people type, it's fair enough, but it should look like there's some discussion. Do we have more questions, Sarah?
No, not. But there is a discussion that is going on, and a very interesting one. That's good.
Nice. So basically,
Yeah.
both of the JJ slums and Akshardhams are on either side of the reader. JJ was considered. Yes, bilkul. Or last year when Shri Ravi Shankar did this Maha World Yoga Day, and the Delhi Green Tribunal in clean words said that they have destroyed the ecology of the Yamuna, and they had to pay some 330 crore or 300 crores of fine, which is still to be paid. There's nothing. You do a simple Google search and you will see what all they did. They went ahead अक्षरधाम से भी, because ये अक्षरधाम वाला पेपर भी अब काफी पुराना हो गया है.
Right. So any questions? Any other points to discuss?
Or like I would want like some people, if you don't want to talk, at least write that. Is the discussion are you able to make sense of it? Is it on track, or you're feeling कि ये क्या हो रहा है? Why are we discussing? What is this course? Lost sense of blank. हालांकि हमारे लिए सब blank is. Anything? Was the presentation helpful for people who presented? Can somebody say something?
You can raise your hands also if you feel that the presentation was helpful.
Was the presentation helpful? No, not helpful.
My God, it didn't help anybody. Okay, 2, 3. All right,
Okay.
that's good. That's good. That's good.
Fair
That's
enough,
nice.
fair
Yeah. Are we relieved?
Okay.
All right. So we'll stop here then, since our time is up, and we'll have a lecture next week on a different topic. Yeah.
And we can share other reading or links. We can share on
Yes.
that interface. No,
Yes.
if
Yes.
we continue this
Absolutely.
discussion, you want to continue this discussion, please keep writing. We'll also keep commenting in it. That's
Right.
fairly good enough. If you have questions which you thought, but you can make sense later, put it there. We can continue these threads of discussion.
Right.
Okay. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right.
See you next week.
See you. Bye bye.